Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Below the Line. Great once again to be joined by the driver of the number 12 Ford in the ARCA series, Ryan Roulette. Ryan, thank you for joining the show again today. How are you doing?
Good, Samuel. Thanks for having me again. It's been a while. I know we've had a few podcasts together, but I think we've just keep missing each other lately.
Yeah, I don't think we've done one since I want to say before Iowa. I think that week of early June, whenever that was earlier in the summer. So you've run a couple of races since then. So before we talk about this weekend's race at Salem, go ahead and take us through your experiences at Iowa and Berlin.
Yeah, both are wow. Talking about different tracks. It was my first time going to Iowa. I went to high school outside of Newton. There, I went to high school there in Carlisle. So it's about as home of a home race for me as you can get, if you will. So it's good to be back in Iowa and see some old friends and get to that track that I'd never been at or raced on. The race itself, I would say we definitely had some top 10 speed. We don't practice well or qualify well ever at any race we go to. It's a lot of me learning the track and figuring it out, to be honest. But overall, I think we had the speed that day. Was running real good, but early on in the race, unfortunately, we got spun around and hit the left hand side of the car against the wall, left rear quarter panel there, and that kind of took us out of contention for the day. But our team did what they could. There's some great views there on FS1 of them. We'll call it adjusting the car aggressively to get us back out there on the track. And even with that damage and a lot of speed tape, we were running some good lap times once we got comfortable and knew what we had and what worked and what didn't work. So Iowa was definitely a letdown for our team in that regard. But overall, I think we persevered and by staying out there, grinding it out, passing who we could, and just going right, learning as much as we could about what we had. We still brought home a 15th, so hard to beat that, all things considered.
Yeah, I like your terminology there. Graciously adjusting the car. Just a few minor tweaks. I saw something the other day where it was like F1 versus NASCAR when the car gets light cosmetic damage, and Formula One cars and open wheel cars out of the race, and then the NASCAR team just brings out the chainsaw and the jackhammer and the mallet and just starts beating on the thing. It's very accurate, very accurate. And then you go to Berlin and you back it up with another top 15 finish. So take us through that day there. Was that your first race at Berlin too, or did you run there before?
Yeah, that's a lot of this year. So we have one race on a schedule I haven't announced yet that we've seen last year. Other than that, every track has been brand new for us. Berlin, I studied it a lot. I looked at it, and it's very unique. It's flat, no back wall. The line is different than anything I've ever seen before. It's you interload, drift up high on purpose, and basically diamond off the corner in one, and then the other one you're going to late apex in three and four, and basically kiss the wall. I think we hit full throttle for maybe 5 or 6 laps, and then after that, you couldn't do that anymore. You're going to cook the brakes and cook the tires. So it was definitely it was a lot of fun. It was unique. The crowd there was amazing. Um, another series of bad and unfortunate events there going into three. We got speared in the left rear quarter panel, put us into the wall, so we ended up needing to clip it after that race. But just like that video, like you just said about F1 and NASCAR, the team once again went back there, and I heard all kinds of noises. I was trying not to focus on it, on exactly what they're doing. Crew chief said we were good to go. It's not going to cut a tire, and let's just try to get something out of it. But when your rear end shrunk a few inches, it definitely changes the car. But again, it's for us, it's fighting through adversity. And we've had 2 races in a row where we've had to fight through that, and like you said, we just keep grinding. The team, every time we come in, we make more adjustments and just keep trying to make it as best as we can with what we got. And again, another top 15 finish out of that.
Of course, hey, more battle tested for when more of those moments pop up, and like you said, just keep you guys just keep on grinding towards the front. So this weekend you're going to Salem in beautiful Salem, Indiana. I think we had I'm trying to remember his name. I want to say we had that traction promoter on here as one of our first guests last year. I don't remember his name at the moment, but I think we had him. Glenn Luckett, that's what it is. Glenn Luckett, that's his name. We had him on last year. That's a great track. I haven't been able to get out there yet, but that's one of the top short tracks on my list to watch a race at. But what are you expecting this weekend? You got a stacked entry. I got the entry list right here in front of me, and it's going to be a really fun race. You're going to have even more eyes on you than normal with the NASCAR Olympic break. You got Corey Day, highly touted prospect, making his debut there in a really fun entry list. So, what are you expecting this weekend for that 200 lapper at Salem?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. The closest track that I've been on to Salem is Bristol, due to the high banks, but Bristol's a lot wider. You run Bristol way different than you're going to run at Salem. Bristol 1 and 2 is probably pretty close to what I'm going to see in 1 and 2 at Salem, but 3 and 4 at Salem is just completely different. Almost like a Darlington 1 and 2, if you will. Not as wide, not as big, obviously, but it's definitely going to be unique. If you're not going to be up there next to the wall in 3 and 4, it's going to be a long day. So I expect a lot of us are going to be diving in, kind of driving the car up to the wall, and then using the wall and arrow off the wall to push down the front straightaway there. But I know I looked last year. I think they had 18 or 19 cars last year. So like most, actually every race this year, ARCA just keeps bringing more and more cars every weekend. They had 31 at IRP. We're gonna have 25 here, so we're bringing 5 or 6 cars every time more than last year, which is awesome for the series. It gives us more cars out there to compete with. It spreads the field out in a good way. You have the haves and have-nots. That's in every racing sport, but we're starting to get more middle ground cars. So there's going to be great racing all around the track. And what I've seen, I obviously have only ran up front once so far this year at Daytona, but that racing in the mid-teens, that's some tough stuff. That's that's where I keep finding myself, and we're definitely grinding it out and having to race real hard with those folks. So I think it's going to be a great race. I think we're going to put on a good show, and I'm looking forward to bringing the series back to Salem.
Yeah, that's a track. You mentioned it is kind of like Bristol, and then it's completely unique. That's just the anatomy of most racetracks. You can try to compare it to something, and then you look at it again, and you're like, well, that was a pretty generous comparison. Just because, I mean, that's the case with racing. No track is unique, and no track style is unique either. So I've kind of been trying to think about questions that I would want to know. If I was a new fan, a casual fan, from the driver's perspective. So you raced at Daytona to open the year, then you went to Phoenix, Talladega, Kansas, Charlotte, and now you're going to Salem, which is probably not the tiniest track in the world, but it's no Daytona or Talladega either. So how does your mindset change? Because, Salem, you might be a little more physical than you would be at Kansas or Charlotte. How does your mindset behind the wheel change when you do go to a short track as opposed to Daytona, Talladega, Charlotte, etc.?
Right. No, great question. It's like you said, it's completely different. Daytona is physical, but it's a different kind of physical. Daytona, I would say, is more mental. You're just on the edge the entire time. You can feel the car underneath you, and I wouldn't say I could see air like Dale Earnhardt could, but you can definitely feel it when you're in and around traffic. You can see the window net sucking in or pushing out, kind of letting you know how close you are to the car in front of you. You need to move up or move back, or a bunch of little indications like that. But again, you just have your foot in it, and you're just trying to navigate with the pack and get the passes when you can, when it makes sense, right? These short tracks way different, right? You're going to be setting up a pass for not just, oh, I'm going down the front straightaway. I've set up the pass. I'm going to pass now. It's going to be work. I'm expecting it's going to take 2-3 laps to get these passes, and there is a preferred line there where everybody's going to want to be. So if you're out of it, it's going to be real difficult. But with that being said, it makes it fun. I think it's going to be physical. I think we're going to see some bumping and rubbing, some chrome horns being used this weekend. As long as everyone does that the right way, right? There's one thing to move someone a little bit, another thing to dump them. So I think as long as we're all doing it that way and racing hard and respectfully, I think it's going to be a lot of fun for everyone.
Yes, as Harry Hogg said, rubbin's racing. Now, are you a guy that tends to, maybe be on the more aggressive side and tries to use that chrome horn more? Or do you like to usually, lay back, let everybody else clean each other out, and then drive through the smoke?
So I'm an open wheel guy, sprint car racing for a long time. So that is one thing that I've been learning all season is being able to use your car in an advantageous way, we'll call it. I typically am not one that's going to lay a chrome horn on someone or try to knock them out of the way. I'm going to race them respectful, keep both our cars clean. But I will get aggressive, and if they want to go back to where they were, well, I'm going to be there. So a little bit of both, but I'm more of I'm going to wait for them to make a mistake and pounce versus just moving them out of the way.
That's good to know. There's a lot of young drivers coming up through the ranks that, not in ARCA, but in other series that probably would have had an opposite answer. So it's nice to hear that for sure. You've run now, let's see, 7 races this year. Salem's going to be your 8th. That's more than you've run in any season previously here in the ARCA Menard series. So where do you feel like their program is, right now compared to last year or 2 years ago? Not just on speed, but just as a whole, where do you feel Ryan Roulette Racing is at the current moment? State of the Union, if you will.
Nice. No, we're doing great. It's been a slow, long, methodical process of the first year we entered in 21, we had that one race at the end of the year at Phoenix. The next year we had a couple. I think we had 2 or 3 that year. The next year we doubled it, right? We had 4 or 5, and now we're sitting at 8 and a few more to go. So it's been awesome to see the growth of the program and how we're able to keep building and developing and finding the right partners that believe in what we're doing and supporting what we're doing, as well as us supporting their return and what they're trying to do with their organizations. I would say we're definitely in a good spot. There's a lot more growth that can happen. The ARCA season is 20 races total. I'm obviously not doing 20 races. I've already missed a few. So hopefully we can continue to develop the team, get better. We built a fun graph yesterday, or my manager built me a graph yesterday, right, as part of the hype me up thing. And he's like, look at this season. We were, in the beginning of the season, we were in the mid 20s, then we're in the low 20s. Now we're in the we're in the high teens. Now we're in the mid teens. Let's keep walking it down. It's a great graph in the right direction. So hopefully this weekend we can continue that trend, get, top 15 or better. We're trying to find that top 10 this year. We've had the speed during the race to get those top 10s. We just haven't quite found it yet. So hopefully this weekend is that weekend for us.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Last question here. I always like to hear from the competitors themselves. It's always interesting to hear the banter that goes on among drivers about who they think the favorite to win these races is, because to me, at least, it seems like they always have a different answer. You try to ask guys, who do you think the favorite to win is? And they'll give you about 20 different answers. And you go back to write something, you're like, well, that wasn't helpful at all. But who do you think are some of the favorites to win this race? Who do you think are going to be those guys that are just constantly at the front all night?
Yeah, hands down, William Swalledge, super good young man. I've talked to him a few times after races. We ran into each other at Phoenix on the track, so I talked to him afterwards about it. But the young man just has his head on his shoulders. He races hard when he needs to race hard. He races clean. I've been very impressed with him overall. So he'll definitely be toward the front. I think the 28 car is bringing somebody unique, and I'm a sprint car guy, so I'm already looking at him. I think with turn 3 and 4 and how we're going to have to drive that a certain way, I think it's going to fall right into his wheelhouse, hopefully mine as well. And I think once he gets the track figured out, I think he's going to be real good out there this weekend. Venturini will also be up there somewhere, but I think those two are going to be the cars to beat this weekend.
It's going to be a really good race, like you said. And I think, having those unique turns that plays to your advantage as an open wheel guy, and then Corey Days as well. And I mean, you're right. This ARCA field is getting better and better every single week. It's more stacked than I've seen it in a very long time. Great to see. And it's a great mix of veterans and young guns. You have guys like Corey Day, and then you look up, you have guys like Will Kimmel and Brad Smith, who have been there a really long time and performing consistently at a high level there. So it's going to be a really fun weekend at the Salem Speedway this weekend for the ARCA Menard Series. And you guys take center stage this weekend. And, I think it's unfortunate sometimes that ARCA does get overshadowed by the National Series' activities. But this weekend, it's ARCA main show, FS1, Saturday night. It's going to be a really fun race. So, Ryan, best of luck this weekend. And thank you for joining the show again.
Hey, thanks again for having me, and look forward to the next one, buddy.